Very good evening, a warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay. Welcome to August, and welcome, instead of the usual Dan Really Likes Wine cellar, welcome to Leopard Creek, where I find myself for a couple of days. Harry Van Dijk, good friend of mine, who runs a fabulous charitable drive to the Kambaku Golf Club, about 40 minutes from here on the Mozambican border, where I've just come back from doing some filming this afternoon. There are 2 days of golf and fundraising and charity to look forward to. I'll be putting some items up for auction tonight and enjoying a dinner with all of the guests, and then tomorrow and Wednesday out onto the golf courses at first Kambaku and then Leopard Creek. Sadly not joining them, still hobbling around on one leg, but here for a very good cause, and doubtless a little later on this evening, drinking some splendid wine from Harry's cellar, and wine that will almost certainly be from Stellenbosch, because like many people around the world, Harry is a great fan of the wine of Stellenbosch, which segues rather nicely with the theme of this evening's show. Now, Stellenbosch is Wine Town 365 days a year, but it is particularly so from this coming Thursday, because Wine Town Stellenbosch gets underway. And so, to celebrate that, the chair of Stellenbosch Wine Routes and Stellenbosch Tourism, and a man who knows the wine industry reasonably well, the great Mike Ratcliffe, will be joining me on the show this evening. So too, one of my very favourite chefs. He opens a restaurant every 11 minutes, and they just somehow get better and better and better. Bertus Basson will be heavily involved with Wine Town. He's also heavily involved with Stellenbosch, and part of this evening's show is to get a sense of how Stellenbosch, the food and wine capital of South Africa, is just exploding at the moment, and quite wonderfully so. And we'll also head up the road to an estate called Glenelly, where a gentleman called Luke and a gentleman called Nicholas will tell us what's going to be happening at Glenelly over the course of Wine Town, and we'll get some updates on that estate and on Luke's brand new adventure. So all that to come on Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay this evening. Before we do that, though, let's jump over to some news from this week. There we go. This is coming up at Nederburg in the next little while. They've been doing some exciting stuff. They had Pete Goff Wood cooking steak last week with Steve Maresh of the local grill, now Bovine in Camps Bay. Well, now they're trying out some wine and coffee. Do they go together? Well, there are plenty of pinotage makers who would suggest they certainly do. The chance to try some wine. I suspect it'll mostly be red, but maybe there's a white surprise or two. That'll be happening at the Manor House at Nederburg. So you can head over to the Nederburg website if that's something you'd like to try, if you're a lover of wine and a lover of coffee. And this looks like the perfect combination. One of a number of events Nederburg have been running at the Manor House over the course of the winter. So there is one for you for the diary. Then this was last week. This was great fun. I roped in the Nicol family. Didn't take too much persuasion. The guys from Bloeklippen had sent up this particular load of wine. And if you think those labels look a little Luddite, well, that's because they're purely samples. It's the Bloeklippen blending competition, which I have entered together with my wife and her siblings, and we measured up. There was some Merlot, there was some Malbec, and there was some Cabernet Sauvignon, and what it did was gave us the opportunity to mix and match, to throw around, and to try and find the perfect combination of wine from those three grapes. It's really interesting. Obviously, nowhere near the detail or the technical requirements of a proper winemaker, but it did give a bit of an idea of the juggle that goes on as you're trying to work out exactly what components to use and in which percentages to make the perfect blend. Did we get one perfect? Well, we got one we liked, and there was consensus. It's now into the judging, and if the judges know what they're talking about, the Dan Really Likes Wine blend will make the list of finalists. I think that comes out mid-August. I shall keep you posted as to how our Bloeklippen blending has gone. And then this is Karen and her husband, and why are they in the photo? Well, they were the winners of our Cabernet Collective competition. Saw a few people who are watchers and fans of the show who were there at the Mesh Club on Saturday. Karen won those 2 tickets, and they got to come along and enjoy a really good afternoon. It was wine as a time capsule, because each wine estate had some newer cab and some older cabs, some of them going back more than a decade. There were a couple of particular highlights, some 1997 Warwick, which was still fresh and alive and delightful. Some 2012 Bartony drinking really, really well. And that gentleman in the background in the right-hand corner, that's Nick Van Aard, formerly of Warwick, but now of Oldenburg. And some of his slightly older wine, made before he got there, of course, was really well worth drinking as well. We also got to work on a new wine project, but we'll give you some more details of that coming up. Great afternoon, and thank you to the Cabernet Collective for facilitating a trip up to Johannesburg. I am on a trip up to Leopard Creek, just off the golf course at Kumbaku, just filming, sadly not playing, and so in need of a glass of wine. And to keep me company while I do that are four people with a rather intimate knowledge of Stellenbosch in general and Wine Town in particular, which descends upon Stellenbosch on Thursday. So let's welcome them. Mike Ratcliffe is the chair of Stellenbosch Wine Routes among the 11 titles he has at the moment. Bertus Basson is the reigning South African Chef of the Year and has one of the largest collections of cool-looking motorbikes I enviously see on the internet. And Team Glenelly, Nicholas and Luke joining us as well. Guys, a warm welcome. Lovely to have you all on. And Mike, great to have you back on the show, a regular guest. And one with a big smile on your face, which is not unusual because you're one of the happier people I know. But I think particularly proud this week because even by Stellenbosch standards, it is a huge week of celebration in store.
It is indeed, Dan, and hi to everyone out there in Dan Really Likes Wine World. Wine Town is upon us, and it's going to be taking place from the 4th to the 9th of August. It's a really big deal. For those of you that have been fans of the Stellenbosch Wine Festival for the last decades, the Stellenbosch Wine Festival will be back as a centerpiece on the 5th and 6th of August. That's this Friday and Saturday. But the reality is that we always felt that Stellenbosch is not just about the wine, and the wine festival should also celebrate the incredible cuisine, the wonderful accommodation, the experiences, and the people of Stellenbosch. And so we decided to upscale Stellenbosch Wine Festival to a 7-day event, and that's what Wine Town is, incorporating Stellenbosch Wine Festival and so much more. But from now on, it's going to be a 7-day event in August, and we're all pretty excited. The town is ready to go.
I remember you telling me about this a while back with great excitement, and that excitement has turned into a real event that kicks off this coming Thursday. And for me, it strikes a chord on two particular notes, Mike. One is that the world is now back and up and running. We're doing stuff again, and we're getting together, and we're having fun, and we're enjoying ourselves. But it also comes at a time where I don't think Stellenbosch has ever been a cooler or more exciting place to be. And it's always been fantastic to hang out and come and drink wine and eat nice food. But the energy to Stellenbosch at the moment, I was there last week, and it hits you as you walk through the streets. It's just a really cool time to be in Stellenbosch at the moment.
Yeah, I think if there was any positives to take out of COVID, it certainly has created a sense of unity, and that unity and cohesion is tangible. You can see it wherever you go, restaurateurs standing together, winemakers and chefs standing together, and the whole town pulling together. We're quite organized as a town. But also I think that the unity has led to a newfound sense of confidence. And the town and its inhabitants are willing to take on these big events. I wouldn't call it a mega event, but certainly, who knows, one day it might get to that stage. But yeah, and don't forget the fact that we've become the wine bar capital of Africa as well. That's something very exciting for people that come to Wine Town.
I want to come back to that in a moment because one of my favorite days of this year has been strolling through the wine bars of Stellenbosch with you, Mike. I think we gave up after our 17th one, but gee, did we have a huge amount of fun. Tell me a little bit about the restaurants before we jump over to Bertus, because you tweet and post on Instagram on almost a daily basis about stuff that is going on, and so many of those posts are linked to restaurants, and there's new cool stuff happening on the culinary scene. People like Bertus have been major driving forces, but there is a bit of a food revolution, it seems, happening in Stellenbosch at the moment.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the confidence. People are willing to experiment. They also know that Stellenbosch is attracting the visitors, so that if they're going to try something new, the chances are they're going to be people sitting in the seats. And yeah, we're starting to attract really talented chefs, both younger and older, from all over the country, from Johannesburg, Martinez from DW opening up at Jordan, and chefs from Cape Town, chefs from restaurant. There's a new restaurant, Darren Bardenhorst, opening on the 1st of September. So yes, but also let's not forget the tried and tested. If you walk down Church Street or Dorp Street, or even go into the wineries on a Tuesday or a Thursday, we're seeing traction, and people are actually visiting the town as foodies and as winos. And I think this is extremely positive. Food and wine are such natural bed partners.
Clueless wine guy Eric writing in, watching on YouTube. I really hope they bring Stellenbosch Wine Festival back to Johannesburg. Well, I can tell you, Eric, that the Pick and Pay Food and Wine Festival will be happening 22nd and 23rd of October. So put that one in the diary for the Wanderers, where there will be great wine and terrific food, which sums up Stellenbosch perfectly. And a man who's at the thrust of that is Bertus Basson. Bertus, welcome back. Always lovely to have you on the show. Picking up from Mike there and this wave of restaurants. From a chef's perspective, is it the same as from ours, that it's a really exciting time for food in Stellenbosch at the moment?
Dan, it really is. I think the real growth points of food in South Africa is in independently owned restaurants, and usually with young chefs. And we've been so lucky. There's a little place open up called Ratcliffe that we love eating at. That has really just simple but delicious food. Post and Pepper's doing really well. Darren's coming to town, so it's wonderful to have new energy in the foods in Stellenbosch, and it gives me somewhere to eat, which is always fun.
Which I see you post from time to time. There you are with the family out with Marlies, you're having lunch, having dinner, and I'm trying to work out how on earth do you have time to do so, because you've got all these restaurants dotted wonderfully around Stellenbosch, but you clearly do sneak in that time in between running them, and in particular running one that's getting a lot of attention. I visited you down there and we've done some stuff at the venue, but Clara's and the Barn, it's now a little more established, seems to be going really, really well.
Yeah. So Dan, I think the first thing is I love eating, and I love restaurants, and I love the culture connected to restaurants, and obviously the wine industry as well. So we make time to go out and enjoy restaurants. And luckily in Stellenbosch, we don't have to go too far, so we can really head up the road and eat somewhere great. But Clara's is doing really well. So Vargenoeg is a beautiful old farm steeped in history. And Clara's is inspired by the idea of a old South African farm kitchen. The young chef, Ratcliffe, is doing an amazing job. The food is delicious. It's well thought out. And we're enjoying that space a lot, man. The restaurants are growing beautifully. It's amazing. So we're having a lot of fun, and there's lots more things happening. So there's always something with the Bassons. I always joke with Marley and I say, there's always something that's happening, and there's some nice new projects on the horizons for us as well. So Stellenbosch is alive and well, and food's great, and there's enough wine for all of us. Thank goodness.
I've had the pleasure of eating at Clara's, and it was a splendid meal, unsurprisingly. Probably the biggest advantage, though, Bertus, of being where you are in this new space is it is on a wine estate, and something that I know well and that Mike Ratcliffe knows well, but not so many other people do. Most people think, Bertus, yes, he's the chef, he's the food guy, whereas we know that you merely do that as a way to get through the day and pay the bills so you can indulge in your real passion, which is actually wine.
Yeah. 100%. And then, I think the wonderful thing is, I've got this theory where when you're close to the ocean, which we are here in Stellenbosch, and you're close to vineyards, then the food will always be better. So wherever you travel the world and you're close to vineyards and close to the ocean, you're bound to have better food. And that's what Stellenbosch does so well. We've got the best of all worlds. We're close to Cape Town. We're in the heart of the winelands. It's such a historical space to be. You can't help but be inspired, but to just cook delicious food and drink amazing wines.
We've spoken on this show many times, but I think many commentators have over the last while of just how well our restaurants have gone over the last number of years. Do you see a direct correlation that almost the wine and the food are helping to lift each other up in terms of the standard we're producing?
Oh, definitely, Dan. I think South African wines are. I mean, I look forward to every new vintage because there's always something new, and then and wines become better. But if you look at the success that we've had recently with Mabatu from her restaurant in Maker's Landing in Cape Town, that sort of got awarded sort of the a up and coming star award by the World's 50 Best, and then Fane obviously did so well with their placement, and La Colombe did really well as well with the top 100. You know, every bit of positive press around South African food is so good for us, and you know, so we've got that component, but then also the wines, it really works well. I had an amazing meal recently at La Colombe, actually in Cape Town, and it was so cool because I chose that evening to just spend the night with Hartenberg Chardonnay de Eleanor, and it was an amazing wine, an amazing evening. But it just shows you that like a single bottle of wine that's just so well made can complement a whole meal, and you can have an amazing time just with one bottle. And yeah, superb. So yes, great, well-crafted wines really complement good restaurants, and we appreciate what the wine industry does for us as well. You know, if it wasn't for the wine industry, restaurants like mine wouldn't exist.
They work together brilliantly. I can actually see on my screen at the bottom Mike Ratcliffe shaking his head in bemusement. A single bottle of wine. This is not a concept with which Mike is familiar. Mike will run you through that after the show. Well, let's jump onto that wine topic and head up the road to Glenelly and to another one of our fabulous South African wine estates where Luke and Nicholas are with us. Guys, welcome. Lovely to have you both on the show this evening. And Luke, exciting times. I guess probably a little bittersweet. On one hand, a really exciting journey ahead of you now at one of the iconic and definitive South African estates. But on the other hand, the end of a chapter at what's been just a really wonderful part of not just your story, but the Stellenbosch wine story.
It certainly is bittersweet. I've been here for 14 years and I've worked very closely and got a real love for the family that runs Glenelly. But the new chapter, as you put it, going off to Vergelegen is a great opportunity. But I've got huge boots to fill on that side, going into and follow what Andre has achieved over 21 years on that side. But I'm looking forward to it.
It's a journey we'll be following closely as you say goodbye to Glenelly. But Glenelly is certainly not saying goodbye. It's, in fact, as exciting as it's ever been. And there is a new man coming in. And Nicholas, give us a little bit of history for people who perhaps don't know the story of Glenelly. They maybe had the wine, but don't know how it all comes apart. How a rather well-known lover of wine in France decided that she wanted to get a foothold in South Africa.
Yes, so Glenelly started existed before us, but started as a wine farm in 2003 when my grandmother, Maide Langzin of Château Pichon, Ville-Comtesse de Lalande in Pauillac, purchased the estate. And she really had a vision for this place, which at the time was a fruit farm. So there was only like plums planted on the estate, but I know you've been here, you've seen how beautiful the landscape is and this amphitheater that's forming around the winery. Ideal for producing wine. So that's how it all came about. Obviously, the link between my family and Stellenbosch is the Cabernet Sauvignon grape. We've been working with Cabernet Sauvignon for nearly 2 centuries in Bordeaux in my family. And my grandmother identified Stellenbosch as a fantastic place for creating her own brand. And this is what she did back in 2003.
Maybe just to reinforce how much that means to Stellenbosch, remind us of the credentials of your grandmother, what came before Glenelly, which I think shows very clearly how highly she must have regarded this estate and Stellenbosch if she was moving into that space based on where she'd been before.
Yes, definitely, and even more so, it was a bit of a leap of faith because she started this project, so buying Glenelly and putting the fruit trees and planting the vineyards at the age of 78 years old. So she had this real vision for the place and started quite late this project in her life. She's now turned 97, and interestingly, she's just published her memoirs, which will be I think available in English around October, November. So that's my grandmother.
And I think what was interesting as well, Dan, is before she actually settled on Glenelly and South Africa, she had actually traveled around the world looking at different opportunities in the United States and other parts of the world. And she saw the huge untapped potential that Stellenbosch held. And that's why she decided to branch out down here.
So what then, by extension, Luke, do you feel that says about the estate, about Stellenbosch, about South African wine, when someone with this pedigree, with this understanding of wine in its home nation of France, comes to South Africa and says, right, I'm going to pin my colours to this particular mast?
Well, I just think it shows the true pedigree that we can produce out here, and how understated and underestimated the wines are. And I think where it really came to the fore is when Madame was president of the IWSC, which is a big international competition. When she was in her tenure as president, she started a trophy for the best blended red wines in the world called the Pichon Lalonde Trophy. And subsequently, it's been won more times by South African estates than any other country. A lot of the trophy was won many times by people like Beyers Trutte and Dani Stather and Andre van Rensburg, to name a few of them. And that's what really got her interests perked up, what the qualities and the virtues of what the soils that we have down here. And I think something else that was quite interesting for me is that if you look at her background, I mean, she's a specialist in ancient civilizations before she got involved in, or took over Pichon. And she's got a real love for history and the ancient past. And you have to look at our soils here, that we've got some of the oldest viticultural soils in the world. And it's because we never suffered from the ice age down here. So the glaciation effect never removed our topsoil. So we've got really, really weathered, decomposed soils. And if you're walking through many of the vineyards, you'll pick up Stone Age hand axes and things like that around. And she found it fascinating that you had civilization living around here for hundreds of thousands of years.
And those last 14 or 15, have seen you standing guard over the Glenelly estate. Constantia background, but Stellenbosch very much home. But you've also spent time at places like Screaming Eagle and Angelus and places around the world. With that background, with having travelled and seen so much of the wine world, what do you make of the last 14 years in Stellenbosch and the changes, hopefully improvements, that you've seen in that near decade and a half?
Well, I think I've been very fortunate to be able to travel and see what's out there in the world. And the one thing that I've really discovered was that I always wanted to come back. And I always found the wines and the soils and the climates in general here to be particularly exciting, and be able to produce a very dynamic, interesting wines, and also offer a great variety coming through. I think we offer the perfect stepping stone between what would be like a Californian or Australian style to what would be a more classic European style. I think we straddle it perfectly, and it gives a great drinking pleasure. And due to our climate and our aspects that we have, we are afforded the opportunity, should I say, to produce many different styles and do them really, really well. And I think Stellenbosch it's a big area, and it's got a lot of microclimates around the place, and that's why you've got such diversity in the area, which makes it particularly exciting. And the fact that we've got old vineyards popping up around the place as well continues that trend.
Well, that diversity and that celebration will be on show over the course of Winetown, including the Wine Festival. So let's kick off in a bit more detail with what is happening at Winetown. Mike, you've got 2 days of Wine Festival. How's it working, and how do people get involved?
Well, the Stellenbosch Wine Festival is a classic example. It's going to be held in the town hall, so right downtown in Stellenbosch, 2 days, Friday the 5th and Saturday the 6th of August. It's the centerpiece of the greater 7-day Winetown Festival. All the details are available at winetown.co.za. The tickets are 350 Rand per head. It includes an incredible selection of really top-end wines. All the wineries have been encouraged to bring their best, And on top of that, we will have a selection of our chefs, including our friend Bertus, who will be there on the evening making food, and that's included in your ticket price. So it really is a remarkable opportunity. But just because we have a centerpiece of the wine festival, there are so many different wineries that are offering smaller bespoke events throughout the course of the 7 days. So coming to Stellenbosch just for the night for the wine festival might not be enough. You might need to come for a little bit longer. And so there are incredible accommodation specials throughout the week. And in fact, there's a 2,400 Rand incentive under our Stellenbosch campaign, where if you spend 4 nights, you get 2,400 Rand back. So it's all happening. All the details are on winetown.coza. And we just simply don't have enough time to talk about all the events that are happening.
We will touch on some of them, though. I do also want a little bit more on Stellenbosch, because it sounds like some sort of cryptocurrency. Somebody's trying to flog me on Instagram, but it's actually something far more serious and far more valuable than that. What are Stellenbosch? How do they work? How do I earn them? How do I spend them?
Well, we have different Stellenbosch. This is accommodation Stellenbosch. During lockdown, we had restaurant Stellenbosch, where for every time you went to a restaurant, you earned the Stellenbosch back on your snap scan, and you could use them immediately the very next day to pay for another trip to a restaurant. This time, if you go to the accommodation establishments in Stellenbosch and you book, you automatically earn up to 1,200 Rand a night back in Stellenbosch, which can be used in restaurants across town for experiences. So the currency can be used pretty much anywhere. Well, not anywhere, but in a huge number of different outlets in Stellenbosch. So it's just really an incentive to say, if you come and spend the night, don't just come for the day, come and make a weekend of it, or a long weekend, and get incentivized. You know, it's cash that can be used throughout the town.
It's a really proactive system, and it's already got a lot of fans, and it just allows you to maximize your time in Stellenbosch. And believe me, you want to do that, because there is so much happening. Mike's touched on not just the wine festival, some of those other events. At that wine festival, there is our resident chef who will be there. Are you actually going to get any cooking done, Bertus? Are you just going to be wandering around surreptitiously tasting as much wine as you possibly can?
No, Dan, it's going to be all hands on deck. We're expecting hundreds of people at the events, and I'm quite excited about this, because when I started chatting to wine routes, I said, look, I'm new in Stellenbosch. I'm in commerce, so I've only been here for about 8 years or so. But you know, the old Stellenbosch wine routes sort of wine festival was really like a homemade affair. So each farm would probably come with bread, or another farm might come with a bready, and it was cooked really by the winemakers' wives. And they asked if we could sort of emulate this a little bit in this event. So we're doing like old school plaasbrood, we're doing waterbloemetjie bready, curry and rice, we're doing ideal milk puddings. So really old school South African food. That would probably make you think of going to a church fete in the 1970s, and I'm excited about it, because it's the kind of stuff that I like. I love eating like that, and I love cooking that sort of stuff. So it's going to be exciting for us.
Well, anyone who's been to Acre will know your love of old school and how you reinvent it so marvelously. So I can see where your excitement comes from. Couple it with the wine, and you'd probably be front of the queue anyway. But how much is the excitement added to by the fact that you are seeing this town that you personally are so passionate about, and that you did so much to support in lockdown with cooking meals for people and supporting people and bringing restaurants together, to now see the world back out and at play in Stellenbosch, supporting the community of which is such a key part, and breathing collective life back into Stellenbosch with?
No, it's incredible, Dan. We've really all been waiting with bated breath to get sort of back to a sense of normality, I suppose, after COVID, and finally we're there. And when you walk the streets of Stellenbosch, it's so encouraging that every sort of second group of people you pass are actually tourists, and they're foreign, and they choose to come to South Africa firstly, and then they choose to come to our town. And it's a town we can be proud of because of what we do here, but it's incredible. So there's so many exciting things happening: food, wine, festivals, great people, amazing hospitality, super accommodation. It's incredible. I think we can be really proud of what Stellenbosch has become from a tourist perspective in the last few years. And I really think Stellenbosch as a town came out of COVID sort of stronger than what we went in. And exciting times ahead.
Let's get some slightly, definitely more neutral, because he is really a Stellenbosch local now, but someone who's seen other parts of the world in detail. Nicholas, we're enormously proud of Stellenbosch as our South African wine capital and heartland. How do you feel the Stellenbosch experience compares to some of those in France and beyond? How well are we actually doing in Stellenbosch?
Well, I think Stellenbosch is really at the forefront of wine tourism in the world. And as you said, I've been lucky to travel. I think in France, there's nothing like, œnotourism or wine tourism like there is in Stellenbosch, be it the food experiences or the different experiences the wineries offer. We're trying to visit a chateau in Bordeaux, and even more classified growth in Bordeaux. You'd have to know people who know people who know people to get you in. Here in Stellenbosch, I think people are very welcoming, and also we try, I think, even harder than other wine regions because it's quite far away from everywhere. It's far from the United States, but because we try harder, I think we get all these amazing guests and visitors on the farm and on the farms.
And you're going to have more of them over the course of the week that is Winetown, including a particular dinner. And when I saw the price tag, Luke, I thought, chill, over 3,500 rand for dinner. What on earth are they serving? Then I saw what you were serving and tried to work out how you were able to bring the price of the ticket down quite so low based on what was there. You've got a few things happening, but that dinner, I think it's Friday night, looks like a proper night out.
Yeah, I mean, we're really excited about the dinner. I think we're offering a lot, like you were saying. I mean, we've got our Lady Mays, obviously, but it's more a journey around what Bordeaux blends are around the world. So we've brought in things like Sassicaia, for instance. I'll just show you here, like a bottle like that, which is a 2016. And it's considered probably one of the greatest vintages of Sassicaia ever made, and we've got something that's closer to home for us because we've also got De Cru Bukoyo, which is actually the chateau that Madame was born in, along with great examples from South America like Amaviva, Cheval des Andes, and then looking at the United States, we've got Ridge Montebello Cab, which is that blend is legendary in the sense that it has won the judgment of Paris and really puts the American markets in the forefront alongside with Bordeaux. And they're wines that are to be celebrated and to just have a discussion around what a Bordeaux blend really means to people and the different interpretations of it around the world.
Nicholas, how important is it for you to have your Lady May benchmarked against the top of the rest of the world? And how important is it to show other people that this is what you can do, this is where you sit, that you are not out of place in that sort of esteemed international company?
I think it's absolutely key for South African wines, and in our case, Cabernets or Bordeaux blends, to taste against other great examples from around the world and to see where we position ourselves. And more than often, I think I think South Africans are a bit shy about their wines. They maybe don't have the confidence to show them against these great wines. And more than often, the South African wines do absolutely fine, and in some instances are even better than the examples from France or from North America. So for me, it's absolutely key that we do this type of exercise as often as we can. And here, in this case, we do it on the same kind of vintages. So we're going to be tasting the 2016s of the other wines, and the 16 Lady May and 17 Lady May. And yeah, I think it's something also we want to share with the guests, and also let them make up their minds and see. They'll see the price difference also on the bottles. I think that bottle of Sassicaia, costs in the region of 8,000 or 9,000 rands. Well, I think for about half or less than half of that, you can have a fraction of that, some amazing wines from South Africa. And I think this is what we're trying to show with the Lady May.
It's a terrific celebration of Stellenbosch and beyond. If you are just laser focused on Stellenbosch, you can do just the Lady May. Explain to us, Luke, what a barrel tasting is. It sounds like the kind of thing Obelix might end up in the bottom of and happily stuck there. If people are coming out, what does a barrel tasting involve with you?
What I'll be doing is I'll take the guests down into our barrel cellar, and we've got barrels that are made by different coopers and different forests and things, and they all play a different role on the wines. And I think a lot of times people think about blending and they automatically assume blending is just putting Merlot with Cabernet or something like that. But actually, we're blending barrels as well, because you've got different aspects that are coming out from the different forests and the different coopers that bring out different nuances in the wines. So we'll be going down to have a look at those variations that come through, and be looking at the impact that the size of a barrel has as well, whether it's a 300 liter, 500 liter, or something bigger like a foudre, which is a wooden tank effectively.
It's another great experience, of which there are so many. Jumping back to you, Bertus, you've got the opportunity to eat out regularly, as you do in between all of the events. Is there a philosophy, do you feel, around food in general in Stellenbosch? Is there something, if not mirroring all the dishes, because that would get a bit one-dimensional, then an approach that you feel speaks to who you guys are as a cooking collective, and what you're trying to approach with showcasing the best of Stellenbosch?
So Dan, every restaurant you go to is different, and it's actually amazing that chefs show their creativity and that you have a different experience everywhere. I think the one thing that's important to me, and what we see frequently in restaurants in Stellenbosch, is that people celebrate their heritage. So it's amazing to see young chefs showing who they are and showing where their sort of food palette comes from, and then local ingredients. It's just amazing. So we're very lucky in Stellenbosch that we've got, in winter especially, opportunities for foraging, lots of mushrooms. There's lots of wild herbs. There's lots of game meat around. So just really being South African in what we do, and showing locals and foreigners alike that South African cooking and ingredients can be super cool. So but what every chef does with those sort of components in the restaurants on their menus is up to them, and it's really cool to see young people being super creative with local flavors.
Which I think also applies to a number of our winemakers, I think most of our winemakers, where there is that excitement to interpret and to be inventive and be creative. Take that food question and translate it to wine. What's really excited you in the last year or two about some of the wine that Stellenbosch is producing, some of the styles, some of the grapes, some of the interpretations of what's being done?
Yeah, 100%. Even if you take like a wine like the Remhoog de Chenin, that they make an amazing Chenin, but then they also have an example of the exact same wine with more skin contact, and it's called Free to Be. So that sort of thing is really interesting. You can drink a wine that is linear and acidic and really special, and then they show you the exact same grapes, the same soil, but just in a very different sort of style of making, and it shows the wine so differently. I know the Glen guys are listening, but I'm a massive fan, for example, of their family reserve Chardonnays, and the fact that South Africa can produce wines like that is just super. Whenever I eat there, that's what I drink. I drink the older Chardonnay that they have on their list, and it's cool. So we've got these different experiences of wines that are really just well crafted, solid, and then there's younger winemakers that says, well, hang on, we can still make amazing wines, but let's try something a bit different. And it really shows. We're so lucky to have the best of all worlds of new innovative wines coming onto the market, and then old hands saying, look, let's make this super solid, delicious, amazing wine like Mike does with Villefonte. It's incredible.
It's an endorsement, not just personal, Mike, but also for Stellenbosch as a whole, and speaks to the excitement of the Stellenbosch wine scene. It is electrifying. The wine bars that you spoke of are full of all sorts of different wine to taste. I'd imagine probably the the only great challenge you have is trying to focus on what to drink and where to drink it, because there is just so much opportunity. Is that a challenge for Stellenbosch in terms of an identity when there is so much great wine you can make from so many different grapes or blends thereof, of getting people to fully understand or get their head around Stellenbosch because the offering is so varied?
Well, we have spoken about it a lot, and there's been a lot of very intelligent people that have had a lot of very strong opinions on it. But my opinion, which seems to be the opinion which our board currently leverages, is the fact that Stellenbosch is diverse. We should celebrate all of the diversity, and when we have a few strengths that surface, we should celebrate them too. So it's undoubtable, indisputable, let's say, that Cabernet is a trump card for Stellenbosch. It has become very strong, and a lot of producers and restaurants are rallying around it, and that's great. But it doesn't diminish the efforts of all of the other producers. Just during the Wine Town week, we've got a Celebrate Chenin Blanc event, which is going to be absolutely fantastic, hosted at Stellenrust with Chef Craig Cormack. And so we do celebrate everything, but it is undeniable that there are some strong trump cards emerging. Cabernet Chardonnay is on the rise, as Bertus mentioned. It's not too long before Stellenbosch Chardonnay really raises its hand, and I think that's happening. But, Stellenbosch is much more than the wine. It's also about the restaurants, and I find it personally very satisfying to see the unity and the cohesion amongst the chefs and the foodie scene as it rises post-COVID. And the fact that Stellenbosch is becoming this super hot culinary destination is an amazing trump card, not just for the town, but for the entire region.
There is one other big event that I think almost wraps things up, and there's a slight family link to it, but I want to finish with that. Before I do finish, let's nip back to Glenelly quickly. Nicholas, we know you're saying goodbye to Luke, and I'm sure there'll be a few tears and some lingering hugs, but I know the friendship will remain both personally and with the estate for many, many years to come. You've got Dirk coming in, a very exciting appointment, who himself has got a very strong record. What does the future look like for Glenelly for you, Nicholas?
Well, I think it's all about continuity. We're not that old. Our first vintage was 2008, but I think with Luke, we've really established the identity of Glenelly and the style that we can produce out of this farm. And I think for Dirk joining us now, it's going to be about obviously him bringing his touch and his talent to the winemaking, but we're really looking for continuity in the style. And this also goes back to the style of the wines we're making back in Bordeaux. And I think there's also continuity between that wine we're making back in Bordeaux and this wine we're making here in South Africa. So I think that's the key word. And I think the future is bright for Glenelly. We're still a young farm, and I think there's a lot's going to be happening in the coming years. So please keep an eye out for us.
I certainly will. I suspect you'll still have Luke on speed dial just in case, in between the new adventure. What is the feeling like at the moment, Luke? Is it complete excitement, a little bit of nerves? How are you approaching the beginning of this new chapter?
There's definitely some nerves. I'm still wrapping things up here, so there's a lot of focus here still, but I think when we get closer towards the end of the month, yes, the nerves will start to jangle going across. But I think it's good. As they say, change is as good as a holiday, and I'm looking forward to what the new challenges are on that side. And there's no doubt the vineyards on that side are absolutely phenomenal. So looking forward to working with that fruit and starting to understand what that property has to deliver. I mean, it took me many, many years working here at Glenelly to understand fully what our vineyards were doing here. And I'm sure it's going to be the same journey on that side that I'm going to have to take.
It's one, as we're watching Glenelly closely, so we will vergelegen, and it's not too far off now as you do prepare to say goodbye. A tough one, but can you perhaps come up with what you would say is the proudest achievement in your 14, nearly 15 years at Glenelly?
Sure, that's a tough one, Dan. I think probably the best achievement is actually going back to something that Nick said, is that we've started to get great consistency coming out of the vineyards and the wines, vintage after vintage, particularly in the last, I'd say, 5 vintages that have been very, very strong. And we're certainly starting to stamp ourselves very firmly on the international scene. And I think that's what's giving me the most pleasure. Seeing the potential of this property, and bear in mind it's still a young property, so we're in the infancy of it, so it's still got massive strides to go and huge potential that lies ahead.
Just getting going is the right way to put it. A lot more to come from Glenelly, including some great food, because as Bertus has alluded to, there is a splendid restaurant there. There are splendid restaurants doing all sorts of stuff over the course of Winetown. There's a dine, eat and stay option at Jordan. There are winemakers dinners at Ruston Fred and Guardian Peak, amongst others. There is a great deal happening. What for you, Bertus, is one to really look out for, if not just on Winetown, but of the new restaurants on the wine estate, eateries, other than your own, of course, that you've sampled over the last little while?
Sure. So I really enjoy Ratcliffe in Stellenbosch. It's simple food, cooked really well. Alex and Ella. Alex is the chef in the kitchen. Ella's on the floor. They do a super job. I really enjoyed Jess at Post and Pepper, sort of modern cooking, but a beautiful space. And then you spoke about Glenelly just now, but I love Christoph's cooking. So Christoph has got a few restaurants in the area, but he cooks delicious food at Glenelly, and is at the Postcard Cafe as well. And it's also at Justenburg, sort of good French classics, great bread. I think Christoph bakes the best baguette in Stellenbosch. So Dan, we can keep on going all day long, man. There's just so much to choose from. We're very spoiled.
And if you're thinking, well, how on earth are all these Stellenbosch people not the size of houses? Well, I can tell you, amongst the other things they spend their time doing, Bertus and Mike go on 25-kilometer runs most mornings, which is why they somehow still look like GQ cover models, despite their collective love of a little indulgence. Mike, as we wrap up the show and look forward to what I think is going to be a seminal celebration of Stellenbosch, Women's Day, and a celebration of some rather important women in the history of Stellenbosch, including a formidable lady called Norma.
Yes, I figured that you were probably going to raise that. Yes, it's a wonderful event, also to be found on the winetown.co.za, but it's a wonderful event called the Grand Dames, and it is 3 ladies, my mum, who would probably punch you if you called her a Grand Dame, but together with Anneke Melk from Murati and Vera Sperling from Delheim, 3 women that have seen so much and have achieved so much over the years, over the decades, in really putting Stellenbosch on the map. And obviously I feel a small sense of pride, given that it's my mother. But yeah, it's an event not to be missed. I will certainly be there. It's on the last day of Winetown, so I'll probably be slightly broken by then, which is good because I'll be a spectator and not on the podium.
So much on offer and to explore. The words of Indigo Travel, watching over on Facebook at the moment. Lisa Harlow, regular on the show. I think you should be very proud of your wine tourism, the best in the world for accessibility and friendliness. And don't forget the stunning scenery. And Amanda de Klerk, harking back a moment ago to Glenelly. The future is indeed bright for Glenelly Estate. Nicholas wishing both winemakers the best with the next chapters in their careers. Quick summary for us, Mike. Do you need to get a wristband when you arrive in at Stellenbosch? How do you get into all of these events? How do you buy the tickets? Where do you find all the information to be part of it?
Well, it's very simple. All of the information is on the website, winetown.co.za. If you go in there, each one of the events is individually detailed. Not all the events require booking, but the best ones do. So I would suggest booking early. Please, there are 1 or 2 events that are sold out at this stage, but my number 1 recommendation is get yourself locked in for the Stellenbosch Wine Festival on Friday, Saturday night, and then plan your long weekend around that. It's pretty easy to get organized, and I just think a final comment is just because it's a wine town and it's wine orientated, this has been very carefully conceived as a family-friendly 7-day event. So there are activities for kids. You don't have to be sitting drinking wine all the time. There are experiences, there's mountain biking, there's walks, vineyard walks. And so I think it's very important for everybody to know that the family is welcome.
I'm just having a flick through that program as you speak. Cheese, fondue, and jazz out at Della. This list just keeps getting better and better and better. Mike, I don't think you need this, but I shall do it anyway. Best of luck for a really, really cool week of wine and food and music and bonhomie and camaraderie and all the good things that stitch Stellenbosch together and make it such a unique space. Enjoy. Bertus, good luck with a busy couple of days. And Nicholas and Luke, enjoy the week. You guys are going to be very busy as well. That dinner sounds magnificent. I think I'm going to have to mute you both on social media to prevent industrial envy. And good luck going forward with both Glenelg and Bergelig, and some lovely stories still to be told. And thank you for joining us. I am sadly on my way to Europe, so I'm not going to be there, but it is in the diary for 2023, which I suspect I might need to book for next week just to get a spot in, given how good this is going to be. Guys, thank you so much. Bertus, Nicholas, Luke, Mike, really appreciate it, and have a wonderful week of celebration of all good things in Stellenbosch.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
There we go. Chair of Stellenbosch Wine Routes and Stellenbosch Tourism, Mike Ratcliffe. Bertus Basson, South African Chef of the Year and Restaurateur Extraordinaire. Nicholas Bureau out at Glenelg together with Luke O'Connor, giving us a look at Stellenbosch Wine Town. Kicks off on the 4th. That is this Thursday. Make a weekend of it. Earn your Stellenbucks and celebrate the very best of Stellenbosch. And gee, there is a lot that fits into that particular space. It's going to be an absolute cracker. That does it for this evening. I am dashing off to go and flog some items on auction for charity and support Harry van Dijk and the Leopard Creek and Kambaku golf communities as they raise some money for golf development. I will be back in Johannesburg on Thursday, and I'll be previewing my month in Greece. I leave for Greece at the weekend, where I'll be visiting Greek wine estates and wineries and meeting some Greek winemakers. So I'll be heading off to Vasaltis in Santorini on Thursday, but have one or two rather special South African guests as well, with a link to the home of Asif Decor. That does it for this evening. Thank you for watching. This is Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay. And please do let us know if you've got to Wine Town in Stellenbosch. Tell it what it was like. Tell us what you enjoyed, and I'll happily pass it on to Mike and his team. That does it for now. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening. Goodbye. To join the Pick n Pay Wine Club, simply SMS your smart shopper number to 36775. It's absolutely free, and you'll get for yourself 3 times the smart shopper points on every bottle of wine bought. You'll also get a 20% discount on 10 different wines each month, a 25% discount on a case of wine, and a Magnum, some terrific competitions and invitations to awesome events.